Eric, Boko Haram reportedly pledging allegiance to ISIS, making it the latest terror group to swear its loyalty. So is it just propaganda or a real alliance? Our next guest will explain what it means in the fight against terror.
Are two of the world's most notorious radical Islamic terrorist groups joining? Well, that is the looming possibility after the leader of the terror group Boko Haram swore a formal allegiance to ISIS. But experts say it for now remains unclear if there will actually be an alliance between them or if the pledge is just empty talk. What is it? Well, Jonathan Schanzer is the Vice President of Research at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and author of the recently published book, State of Failure, Yasser Arafat, Mahmoud Abbas, and the Unmaking of the Palestinian State. Jonathan, always good to see you. I mean, is this really an operational alliance or just a symbolic pledge?
Well, it remains to be seen, but I can say that over the last year or so, analysts have been watching as ties have grown closer between the Islamic State and Boko Haram. Just last week, there were concerns that perhaps the Islamic State was helping with Boko Haram videos, that in the past those videos have been rather poorly done, a bit grainy, and really looked like real amateur-type work. Now, all of a sudden, you see these much more slick-looking videos, and of course, a decapitation, which is increasingly the hallmark of the Islamic State. So we're watching with great concern that this could be a real marriage rather than one on paper.
Yeah, I mean, not just a copycat. They are beheading people, begun to do that, what the Islamic State is doing. But let's look at the map. I mean, if this is true, that they are joining together, I mean, the Islamic radical terrorists will then be potentially in control of a huge swath of territory, stretching there from Yemen down on the right, up through a large part of Iraq and Syria, and look, straight down through to West Africa, right through Chad and Nigeria. What does this mean if indeed they are together and they do potentially control a lot of that territory?
Well, this is a lot of territory to control. We're already seeing that the Islamic State is having a hard time maintaining the territory that it conquers, and so I don't expect to see huge chunks of Africa under Islamic State control. The area that Boko Haram currently controls is said to be roughly the size of the state of Belgium, but even then we're seeing that campaigns conducted by Chad or Niger or Cameroon or the Nigerian military itself have been eroding some of the territory that the Islamic State controls. So I think it might be a bit too soon to talk about massive conquests of territory, but nevertheless, it is deeply concerning that this ideology is sweeping across the world. It's swept through the Middle East, now making its way into Northern Africa as well as Western Africa. So something to continue to watch.
Yeah, that ideology and that philosophy, then it would seem to be spreading, although France was pretty successful in Mali. But let's take a look at the two leaders. You have the leader, Abu Bakr al-Shaku, there on the left of Boko Haram, and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the guy on the right. Apparently, the leader of Boko Haram, Abu Bakr, I mean, he's been basically trying to imitate the leader of the Islamic State. What has he been doing? How successful is this? And can this encourage converts to the Boko Haram, like we've seen all those foreign fighters, try to go into Syria to join ISIS?
Well, the thing that I'm particularly concerned about right now is just this broader ideology of ISIS. It's Al-Qaeda on steroids. It's a more radical brand than before, although I think at the end of the day you are still talking about a distinction without much of a difference, because it is still Islamic radicalism. It is still militant Islam or jihadism, whatever you'd like to call it. And these two individuals seem to embody it. They have this very, radical personality that they have devoted to the ideology, and so you can see how they're potentially a good match. But now what I'm watching that I'm perhaps even more concerned about is the amount of money, the networks, and the recruitment ability that ISIS has had in the Middle East, and perhaps being able to parlay that in Africa. That's something we're going to continue to watch.
And finally, despite the efforts against radicalization, despite the airstrikes and the West rising up against this, how do we stop it?
Well, look, I mean, I think part of the problem here is that the Islamic State has continued to grow, or it's just been able to hold territory, it's been able to maintain ground in some cases. But the fact that we have not been able to obliterate this organization based in Syria and Iraq, two areas that we've long considered to be areas of significant importance for the United States, this is not lost on the adherents to militant Islam around the world. They see that the United States has either been unwilling or unable to defeat this organization. We've been too slow and too careful, and I think that this has really led to the expansion of this group, now potentially into Africa.
And the Iraqi army, we're told today, not yet ready to face ISIS in their home ground, too. Jonathan Schanzer, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.